that's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine.
Hello, this is starting before the actual video, and since I did it improperly in the actual video, hi, welcome back to the Little Expanded Universe. I need a weapon. You're going to hear that again later. I apologize. I forgot to mention some things, so this is going to happen before all that. So, we're talking about Halo Reach and Halo Legends today, but I say that later on. So let's get to the real thing I forgot to mention, which is the Halo Reach data pads, 1 to 19. Where we learn, you basically find these throughout the game. We learn about an AI collective called the Assembly and how they are basically the Illuminati of this setting, and we don't know a lot about them outside of the fact that they are controlling the events of a lot of things. What are they about? We don't really know. We still don't know to this day, but that's what they are. And then we have Halsey's journal, which came with like collector's editions of Halo Reach, and they're rather expensive to get if you're going to get them nowadays. But it basically just has a whole bunch of Halsey's thoughts throughout the years. There's a great voice recording of it on YouTube by Installation00, where they have a lady who does a great impression of Jen Taylor, but like a younger Halsey voice. We get a lot of things from Halsey where we learn that she had a rather romantic relationship with Captain Keyes because Miranda's their kid. But it's interesting to know, if you think about it, if you read The Fall of Reach or you read this and you hear she talks about Keyes and the reason she likes him, Keyes is a lot like John 117, like the Master Chief. Cortana is based off of Halsey. So it's very much that Cortana is a younger, more carefree version of Halsey. Therefore, it is rather interesting and a bit weird that the relationship between John and Cortana also rather resemble the relationship between, at least early on, with Halsey and Keyes. We learn a lot of things in this book. We learn about third generation AIs. The Orion candidates were too old for things to work, for the proper biological enhancements to work. We learned about a Haven bombing, which was some bombing by the insurrectionists, which really led into, Halsey wanted to do this Spartan program. We also have a section on flash cloning and a whole bunch of other things. But, the big thing here is just that we get an insight into Halsey's mind. And it's rather great if you want to fork over $50 for it. But it shows a lot of nuance to Halsey, because a lot of people give Halsey flack or don't give her enough flack. I know very much that the Karen Travis duology or trilogy rather harps on Halsey for being a bad person, but let's not be mistaken here. The entire government was okay with this. So, just because the government would have done it regardless if Halsey did or not, she still had a moral obligation on whether or not she would do it or not, and she chose to do it anyway. So she is not a bad person, but she's not a good person. She is a complicated person. And so I rather enjoyed that. Anyway, we're going to get into the actual video that'll be playing soon, but I want to make sure I put those in there, so thanks for watching. See you in a second. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Halo Expanded Universe. I need a weapon, and today I have for you Halo Reach and Halo Legends, the anime. So first we're going to go through, and Halo Reach is different from Halo The Fall of Reach. But I figured I'd take care of these two birds with one single stone. So let's get into it. We're going to start with the Halo Legends timeline, or sorry, the Halo Legends anime, which is a collection of short stories just set in the Halo universe. Anime, obviously. We have Origins, part 1 and 2. The first part is great. It shows us an outline of what the Forerunner Flood War looked like in the ancient past. Of course, this is coming from Cortana. Now, if you haven't played the original 3 games, it's not really a spoiler, but guess what? Master Chief doesn't die at the end of 3. So, it has Cortana watching over Chief, and she's kind of freaking out a little bit, because it's been 7 years since she became active, and she's going rampant. But that's not really the main point. You don't have to worry about that till Halo 4. But the main point is that she's watching over him, and she starts to talk about all the things that she's learned and all the knowledge that she's acquired. And some of that is the stuff that she's learned about the Forerunners, parts of it being, merely speculation on her part. But we get a little glimpse of what the Forerunners were like. Now, if you've been reading in chronological order, like I've been doing, then you've already seen the Forerunners, you read the Forerunner trilogy. But if you're going in publication order, you'd actually see this before you got to Halo 4, which is also around the same time that Halo Cryptum, Primordium, and Silentium came out, which were all books that kind of built up the story revolving around 4, but also built up the ancient past. But anyway, it's a really decent little story there, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. Part 2 is rather boring. It shows our history and all the wars, because it's like, if there's one consistent thing about humanity, it's war, war, war. Great, but then it goes near the end where it starts making up falsehoods about the nature of how the Covenant human war ended, which maybe is just because Cortana's going rampant, but that's more me coping. But it makes it seem like all the Covenant and the humans joined forces to stop the Flood, which is not what happened. So I'm gonna say a big no to part 2 of Origins. Then we have the duel. The art style is going to make it or break it for you, but I rather enjoy it. It is this tale of the first Arbiter ever. So, first thing you should know about the Halo Expanded Universe, there is the Sangheili, which are the elites, and there are the Senshayum, which are little turtle boys from Halo 2 and Halo 3. And there was, before the elites or the Sangheili joined the Covenant, they fought against the Senshayum, the Covenant. But once they eventually became part of it, they were subservient. But we follow this Arbiter, and we get to see his wife and him as he operates in his day-to-day, but he doesn't believe in this religious great journey. He doesn't have the fervor that everyone else seems to have. And eventually, when he calls out that the religion is BS, it leads to his wife getting slaughtered along with his best friend. And so, Arbiter goes on a rampage to fight back. And the Arbiter used to be a rank of great significance in the Covenant, but now it is a mark of shame. It is a way to atone for your sins, but while you wear the armor, it is a shame. It is meant to be shameful the entire way through. So, but we got to learn the story of that, and I think it's rather excellent. I rather enjoyed the story quite a bit. Then we have Homecoming. One thing we'll see as I talk about the fall of Reach in a separate video is the lack of nuance. Now, you see, the backstory to Halo, as we've been diving into through all these stories so far, has been that the UNSC stole 6-year-old children from their families, flash cloned them, and trained them to be super soldiers. And for a book that deals with such a heavy topic, Eric Nyland vaguely mentions how bad it is. Yeah, but it's for the greater good. It's for the greater good. It's for the greater good. It's fine. Look, it's the Covenant. As Polygon once said, it's a moral deus ex machina. We don't have to focus on the greatness of this situation anymore, because now we got the Covenant and we have to stop them. But nobody really it is not really addressed properly in the Fall of Reach, I feel. It is such a dark, such an evil thing that is basically chalked up to, well, it's for the greater good. No further examination needed. It's for the greater good. It's for the greater good. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's for the greater good. Like, it acknowledges that it's wrong, but doesn't really dive into it. It just kind of like mentions it and moves on. Homecoming is about a group of Spartans that left the facility and tried to go back to their normal lives. One of them killed themselves on the way back. Another one, got obtained, and one found her clone. Now, the lore states that most of the clones were meant to die within 6 months. So this might be a slight contradiction. The events of these animes might not happen explicitly as they're shown. Like I forgot to mention with the duel, there's a very samurai feel to it. The bad guy that the arbiter faces near the end of that short is in a very samurai-esque attire. Of course, the Sangheili don't have those kind of outfits. So, artist interpretation. But with Homecoming, she finds a clone that's roughly around her age, but stuck in a wheelchair. But at the same time, you can't have 75 children all die at the same exact time of the same exact problem. People will start to suspect something. So perhaps and this might be a thing, I haven't read everything in the lore, but, that, because she is disabled, she's in a wheelchair, so perhaps that was her penance, so that she could live a normal life in Daisy's place. But regardless, she contemplates killing her clone and going back home, but she doesn't. And the main plot is just a battle during the Covenant War, as we keep getting these flashbacks to then. But, she dies. She tries to sacrifice herself for her friends, but all of her friends die. It's a very unhappy moment. All her friends die, and then she dies. And Master Chief shows up at the end and closes her eyes. It's a very somber tale, but a very interesting tale, and I liked it quite a bit. One of my favorites of this whole thing. We have the odd one out. Now, this is completely and utterly not canon. This is just a really fun little story with a new Spartan who's really funny and does like anime battles. And it's not to be taken seriously at all. It's not canon. It was just a funny. And then we have the package. We have the prototype. This is probably the best one. This one is about a soldier named Ghost, who's kind of lost his feelings during the war, has stopped being human. So he fights in this prototype suit, gets his men out, and dies in his last moments getting to be human. It's a wonderful story. Highly recommend. You can watch it for free on YouTube. What are you guys doing? The babysitter. ODSTs don't like the Spartans, but the Spartan keeps saving the one ODST, and then we find out that the Spartan is a female, and then she dies. And he's like, oh no. It's a pretty decent one, though. It's a lot of fun. They actually kill a prophet in this episode, one of the ones that doesn't matter for the games, but they killed off a prophet. That was pretty cool. Like, just sniped him. Also, the buildings look very Japanese. Again, two options here. One, it's just artist interpretation. It's not how it actually looked. Or there's a theory that it used to be an ancient human structure, which is why it looks like that. I don't know. And then lastly, the most video gamey of the bunch, we have the package, where Kelly and Fred and John are supposed to save Halsey, because I guess at one point during the war she got kidnapped by the Covenant, but she looks way too young, and she's very flirty with John. And seeing as how she's basically his mother, rather awkward. Overall, Halo Legends, a collection of anime short stories, is a lot of fun. And I enjoy it quite a bit, and I do think it is worth your time. You should check out. Now, on to what you're really here for, which is Halo Reach, which is kind of contradictory to the book, but it is what we have, because Bungie was like, we don't care that the Fall of Reach came out publication-wise before our game. We're the creators of Halo. Our opinions matter more. Valid, but at the same time. So, the Halo Reach, the video game, is a phenomenal game, and it has a great story. It just doesn't particularly adhere to continuity. However, they have tried to, 343 has tried to retcon its sins. The thing I've realized about Bungie is that Bungie made all the phenomenal, amazing games, but they didn't care about their expanding universe. Whereas 343 have had decent to bad games, but cared infinitely more about their expanding universe. So just different approaches there. There should be some sort of synergy in the middle there. Maybe we'll find it one day. But regardless, Halo Reach, before we actually get into that, we have 2 trailers that came out back in the day that I think are well worth your time to set the tone before you play the game, which would be the Day Before trailer. And this focuses on a pregnant wife and husband arguing about whether they should move or not. They don't got the bills to pay. All my family lives here. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Then we cut to a mom who's got to leave on a business trip. And she's like, I'm sorry, honey, I have to go. But I'll be back in like 3 days, okay? But the somber eeriness of it all is that it's just normal people living their lives, but we know what tomorrow is. It's the start of the fall of Reach. So there's this eerie tone throughout. I mean, there's no like scary music or anything, but it's just that you know what's about to happen. And that these people won't be around much longer. Or most likely won't be. And it's so chilling and so well done. And then we have Deliver Hope, which is a great action-packed trailer, live action, where we get to learn who was Noble Six before you. And that's where we get into Halo Reach. You are Noble Six, an unnamed Spartan who is replacing the previous one and joining their team. We have George, he's a Spartan 2. We have Emil, who's a Spartan 3. We have Kat, who's a Spartan 3. And we have Carter, who's a Spartan 3. We haven't gotten into the Ghost of Onyx yet, but basically, Spartan 2s are 6-year-olds that were kidnapped from their home and augmented to be super soldiers. They were Flash clones so that the parents wouldn't know that anything ever happened. Spartan 3s. We stole kids, but they're orphans this time. Nobody missed them. As Polygon said in his video, it took a little bit of progress until we get to Spartan 4s, where it's just adults. But we'll get to there down the line. But anyway, Spartan 3's orphans, that's the difference. I believe so is your Spartan, is an orphan. Kat, we learn, is the only female on the team, and she's kind of the technical expert. As you're playing this game, you have a bunch of these generic missions that you have to do, but getting to see the backgrounds as you progress through the story, you get to see this war happening, and the constant feeling throughout this game of, for every victory that you have, it's still a setback. You know, you do all these missions throughout the game, you do this, you do that, but you still feel like you're losing. Like, you blow up this big thing, wahoo! But then a bigger ship goes and blows up this thing. So the last 15 minutes you spent feels pointless now. And it feels like that throughout the entire game. Later on, the Covenant keep engaging, they keep doing all this stuff. And they think about this plan. And so George and Noble Six go up to this Covenant ship. George plants a bomb, but the bomb won't go off without somebody there to set it. So he sacrifices himself. Which would be phenomenal, if not for the fact that right after he did that, like hundreds of more ships showed up. So ultimately, a waste of a life. New Alexandria is the mission you do after George dies, and the shift in tone. You have this new futuristic city burning. Civilians running away or dead in the street as brutes finally show up and they start attacking you. But it's just, you keep fighting, you keep pushing. But there's so many of them. It feels so hopeless throughout this game. During the missions in the city, you finally reunite with Carter. You know, and they just have this little moment where, you know, they're Spartans. They don't get super duper emotional, but Carter goes, I'm glad you're back. And your Noble Six goes, I'm sorry I came back alone. And he says, make him proud. You know, just like a little moment like that. And then he finally gets reunited with Kat and Emil and June and Carter. And it's nice. It's a nice moment. Before that happens, though, nice little Easter egg. Because Buck from ODST says that this reminds me of Reach, which means he was on Reach when everything was going down. So you, as Noble Six, save Buck and help him basically escape. He lives to be in future games like Halo ODST and Halo 5. So you come up with this new plan of what you got to do. Or no, what happens is that Dr. Halsey, which I forgot to mention, she's in this game too. She needs them to come to Sword Base because she has a package to deliver. And as they're running, Kat just gets sniper shot in the head. Just dead and gone like that. But from Dr. Halsey, you pick up a fragment of Cortana. So this is another issue. It was meant to just be like Cortana, but I'm pretty sure Cortana was with Master Chief in the Fall of Reach. So later retcons is like this was a fragment of Cortana. Whatever. The dates also don't really line up because I think the war was only like a day or two in the Fall of Reach. Whereas in this, it's like 2 months. So, oopsie. But, yeah, so now Kat's gone. June, we don't know what happens to him. He kind of just leaves with Halsey. Now, I didn't know if I was going to mention this before, but there is a Fistful of Arrows, which is an unofficial Halo Reach companion piece. The story behind this is rather weird. It was going to be on the Halo website and be like an official like thing. But some stuff happened through the talk. It had nothing to do with contradictions or anything. It just had to do with like complications with figuring that all out because it was like a digital comic. And would the guy that made it still get paid for it? And so it never came through. But it's not inherently contradictory. I didn't want to mention it because I don't know if you can actually consider it canon or not. It doesn't really contradict anything, but still. So you can find it for free on the internet if you just look up Halo, A Fistful of Arrows. It's a story of what June was up to with Halsey. And he sacrifices himself, but I'm still not sure if June actually died or not, so I don't know. As you're continuing the mission, though, Carter gets shot, but he keeps trucking. You go and continue on doing stuff with Emil. Later on, this big thing goes to attack you, and Carter sacrifices himself for the team. It's a noble team, full of 6 people, drop down to 2. You got to get Cortana to Keys, and you manage to do so. But then, Emil gets stabbed in the back. And for some reason, ever since I was a little kid, this line has always stuck out to me. Emil is such a private character. We don't know a lot about Emil. I mean, outside of like his skull on his, Spartan armor. Like, what's he all about? Because he comes off rather hostile at times. And I wish I could know more about Emil, but he gets stabbed, but he turns it around, though, grabs the elite, and chucks him off the building with him. But before he does that, he goes, I'm ready. How about you? And I don't know why that stuck with me so much. But then it was just one, the lone wolf, which is another funny thing, because at the beginning of the game, we don't really know Noble Six's backstory, but Carter's like, we know, I read your file, but that lone wolf stuff stays behind. We're a team. What's the final mission called? Lone wolf. Emil died, so somebody needs to take up the big gun turret to make sure that they can shoot down ships, so that way the Pillar of Autumn, the ship from the first game, can get out of there with Cortana and Master Chief and set up the whole events of the original games. If not for Noble Six, there would be no original games. So he tells Keys, I'll stay behind. Somebody's got to man that gun. So Keys and everyone gets away. Noble Six saves the day. And then you have the one last mission, Lone Wolf. As you fight and fight and fight the Covenant, as skilled as you are, until you die. But one interesting part about this is we get a little flash forward from Halsey talking about, your sacrifice, what you did. Basically, it didn't say this verbatim, but it's basically you made the events of Halo possible. And it's thanks to you that we can rebuild. But when this is all being said by Halseys is 2589, which chronologically, none of the books have reached 2589. So do we have a concrete ending? Because Reach is glassed. Glassing means that it was bombarded with bombs and stuff and turned the atmosphere to glass. And basically the whole place is destroyed. And they did that recently. So even with 5 years, it's still going to be like that. So by 2589, it's lush and green and a world again. So is that our ending? Is that our happy ending in 2589? Is that where all stories of Halo finally come to an end? I don't know. I guess we'll see in the future. But that's what Halo Reach kind of sets it as. And yeah, I know I'm not really doing it justice. You really have to play it to kind of see what I mean. One thing I feel that the game doesn't do a phenomenal job of is the characterization of all these Spartans. I feel like some get more characterization than others, and it's like you want to know more and you want to be more invested in these people. They do enough to make you feel a little bit bummed whenever these people die, but not enough to make you truly feel for them. George probably being the only one. But yeah, overall I thought the game was phenomenal. It is different from the Fall of Reach. There are some more problems there that have tried to be patched, but, regardless of that, I do think Halo Reach is a game worthy of your time. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Up next, I'll have the Fall of Reach for you, and then we'll move on to the original game. So until then, guys, may the Force. Oops. Let's finish the fight. Bye-bye.